It's been so long since I played an ace combat game, I really wasn't expecting what we've got here. You've got a full storyline, RPG-like upgrades, and I nearly expected Tom Cruise to come sprinting across the screen, screaming "I will not lose you," before flying off. It feels like Top Gun. Ace Combat 7 is probably one of the most unusual ports that we had announced for the Nintendo Switch, and to come this late in the Switch's life cycle, it's just a bit strange. Now I believe it's taken around 2 years to bring this across, and when it first released back in 2019 it was certainly a nice looking game. Cheers to Bandai Namco for the review code. Is it a soaring success, or does it crash land? Well, my name is Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. The story is told like a Hollywood film. It's based in the continent of Eorzea, where there are two powers, the Ocean Federation and the Kingdom of Eorzea, who once again come into conflict. These are clearly based on actual places, and it won't take a rocket scientist to figure out who they're supposed to be. One of them almost uses all of the actual letters of a certain country. But Eorzea launch a surprise attack on the space elevator, which, as its name suggests, is an elevator that goes to space. And no, I didn't spend an hour and a half googling whether this was possible and then watching a load of random YouTube videos about it. I don't know why you ask. Spoiler, it actually might be. But juxtaposed to this ongoing conflict, you've also got the story of an incredibly talented pilot who was essentially used to train up drones, and then the storyline of his granddaughter plays in, with her getting arrested after building a custom supersonic jet. It all might sound a little confusing, and in all honesty it does get a little bit overlapped at times. The writing could have been significantly better, there's no two ways about it. It's like trying to remember a Call of Duty campaign storyline, it's just not going to happen. But it's presented really well, and it gives some context and meaning to some of the missions. The very first decision that you're going to have to make if you're playing in the story mode is how you want to control the game. Now you've got two choices here. You can control it the right way or the wrong way. No, you have different difficulty modes and that will affect the controls, but if you choose the easier of the control methods, it's going to mean you can't do things like barrel rolls, and it won't feel like an aeroplane at all. It's up to you what you choose. For some of the footage I've used the easier method, and for some of it I choose the correct method, and I definitely preferred the more difficult, in air quotes, control scheme. It feels way more rewarding. Each mission will be briefed, giving you an overview of what to expect, but very often things won't go as planned, and it can create for some real excitement. A good early example sees an unexpectedly huge aeroplane attack your group, and there are people dying left, right and centre. Although a huge amount of choice isn't given to the player, your ability to quickly react to the situation and try and fend off what feels like insurmountable odds is very exciting. It's also worth noting that a single stray missile can send you.
Got a lock on me. H2, move to support. Other aircraft are in trouble.
Fox 2. Attaboy, H2. Just keep firing. Hell of a good job, H2.
It's also worth noting that a single stray missile can send you to your early grave, upon which you'll have to restart from the most recent checkpoint. Ace Combat 7, at least if you don't play on the very easy modes, is quite a tricky game. You're constantly having the beeping of a missile lock, pulling off fast, extreme G maneuvers by pulling both triggers together to do tight turns, and then using the clouds as cover but trying to avoid frosting over. Now the aeroplanes are split into different categories. You've got fighters, which are excellent at maneuvering, making them perfect for one-on-one dogfights, multi-role aeroplanes, which are both good for air-to-air and air-to-ground combat, and then the full attackers, which really do excel at taking out those ground units. As well as choosing the aeroplane you're going to take on your mission, which will show you one of many different stats like speed, mobility, stability, you'll also need to choose their side weapons. And this is where a very cool and unexpected skill tree comes in. Each mission allows you, through your own exceptional performance, to gain much of the game's currency by being an ace pilot. This currency is then spent within what's known as the aircraft tree, where you can unlock different aeroplanes, different side weapons, and it also shows you some which can only be unlocked in specific ways throughout the story. It's really nice to have an aim within these games that goes beyond simply meeting the objectives. Trying to meet them well to gain that currency, it meant that I played very differently. Now, I'm not going to pretend that this is an incredibly deep experience, but it is fast-paced, fun, easy to pick up, and enjoyable to play, which is what I'd hoped for. Sometimes the mission will begin with you having to take off, at other times you'll already be in the air, and the structure of missions also changes. It's not always simply fly to X location, resizing that map to see where enemies are, and then just engaging, trying to get that lock on and taking them out. Some will be reconnaissance missions, where you have to avoid radar, sneaking your way into position before a large battle takes place. In some ways, it actually strangely reminded me of a Star Fox game. You'll have your other pilots and wingmen, small boxes popping up on screen where they're talking, and sometimes when you're desperately trying to save them, but they die, there is a real feeling of guilt as their video feed cuts off. Enemies can be locked onto by pressing X, and you're generally trying to track these, using your secondary more powerful homing missiles to take them out. Obviously they're very good at evading as well, so sometimes using your cannons is the best way, and when you're facing units on the ground, you can get air-to-ground missiles, other types of bombs, and you can even get drones that you send out to do the fighting for you. My biggest criticism would be repetition, but that also feels a little silly because, like many other genres, repetitious elements are part of its intrinsic design, but they're presented well enough as to be engaging time and time again. The Switch version does have online multiplayer. Unfortunately, I couldn't test this because it was pre-launch when I had the code and there's no one online. As well as all of that, you've also got the DLC included, which is 6 different DLC packs. While that is very cool, it does mean you've got some seriously overpowered aircraft to choose from, so I actually had a lot more enjoyment going for one of the lower powered ones and gradually upgrading it, as you would if you didn't have the DLC installed. This version has a music player mode, the 25th anniversary DLCs. There is a ton of content here is what I'm saying. Story and gameplay combined, well, the story is, let's be honest, a tad difficult to follow, shall we say, but I'm still glad that they've tried to put something in there. It's the gameplay that carries it. Together they score 17 out of 20. The controls also score 17 out of 20. Ace Combat 7 runs on the Unreal Engine. It's been used heavily on Switch now, and Unreal Engine 4 can run pretty well. We are looking at some image degradation. Certain aspects like decals can look quite low res, but overall the actual models have come across quite nicely. The environments themselves look quite nice from a distance. Under closer inspection, like when you move very close to the ground, you can see that texture drop, but performance is maintained at 30 FPS and the frame pacing is pretty decent. Whether you're playing docked or handheld, it presents a nice image. Surprisingly so. The audio's come across well and there is some rumble. Don't know if we can call it HD, but I'm glad it's in there. And you can remap all of the axis if you so choose. After every mission, you can watch a full replay of the events. You can change the camera angles, change the backing music, and although fleeting, it was a nice little distraction for a few minutes, especially if there was a particularly epic moment that you wanted to relive. The soundtrack is completely fitting, and this could have come straight out of 1990s Hollywood.
We're taking too much damage. I need to get away.
Visuals and performance combined, well, resolution has taken a bit of a hit, but I think they're still decent. They score 17 out of 20. Sound and audio together, that scores 18 out of 20. Ace Combat 7, the Deluxe Edition, is going to set you back $49.99 or your regional equivalent. And there is a physical version as well that you can find for a little bit cheaper here in the UK. It is the same price as the base version on other platforms. So for example, on Steam you can buy the Top Gun Maverick edition with some of the DLCs we've got here, and that's like 80 quid. Now that's absolutely ludicrous, but at least we're not being charged massively more than other platforms. But I will say, it's quite an old game, isn't it? 6 years old. And releasing at full price. I think maybe £30 to £40 would have just been a better start point. With that said though, let's be honest, there's not much competition on the Nintendo Switch, and it's a decent game, and they've obviously put the effort into porting it across. It will take around about 12 to 13 hours to do the main storyline, but it's one of those that has a ton of extra content for completionists. You could easily push it to double or triple that, and you have the online mode, if there will be anyone online. And it comes with all that DLC gubbins. I give value 16 out of 20. Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown is a fun game, and I enjoyed it quite a lot. It holds up well enough on the Switch, and gets a SwitchUp score of 85%. Is this one you're interested in? The randomness was not lost on me, but I am pleased to see it on here. Let me know in the comments what you reckon. Thanks to all our Patreons, all of our members, all of you that enjoy the content. For all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys.